As you know, this bill would create the, I'll call it Connecticut TCDA for short, a quasi-public state entity that would promote transit-oriented development projects within a half-mile radius of any transit station. It would help ensure that development occurs more quickly near these stations and in concert with statewide transportation initiatives, and it can focus on economic and transit-oriented development to concentrate housing, parking, cultural, and commercial development near transit stops. Let me be very clear. I am a long-standing advocate of transit-oriented development, and I wholeheartedly support the TOD concept, particularly because of the support and services it provides to younger, older, disabled, and less affluent members of our populations, and because of its role in economic development. But I cannot support this bill. This bill undermines every reasonable and long-standing expectation our citizens have of shaping and maintaining the character of the towns and cities where they choose to live. Their local elected officials and the boards, councils, and commissions on which they serve are the custodians of that character. They know their towns and cities and the people who live there, their customs, their traditions, their issues, and their needs. This bill effectively strips local elected officials of the powers vested in them by their constituents that they are elected to exercise. Instead, it transfers those powers to a board of political appointees who have no responsibility to act on behalf of local residents. In turn, local residents completely lose their voice in planning, zoning, and development decisions for their towns. Among the bill's key provisions are the composition of the TCDA board, political appointees, 11 directors, 4 gubernatorial appointees, 3 legislative, and 4 commissioners. The commissioners are ex officio, but they do have voting rights. The chief executive of a municipality hosting a development project would be an ad hoc member of the board for purposes of that project, but would not have voting rights. Local legislative bodies with planning or zoning authority are not even mentioned in the bill. In fulfilling its duties, this TCDA is required to work, quote, in cooperation and coordination with the municipalities where development is taking place, but nowhere, however, is it required to obtain their approval. Similarly, the TCDA would have the power to, quote, condemn properties that may be necessary or desirable to effectuate the purposes of the authority. It would be required to exercise this power in consultation with the affected municipality's chief elected official, but would not be required to obtain his or her approval. Lest there be any doubt about the legislative intent behind this provision, the OPM fact sheet on the bill explains that the TCDA will have eminent domain powers within its designated development areas in consultation, not approval, with the chief elected official of the host municipality. The TCDA would also have its own authority to issue bonds, which would be financed with TCDA revenues, collected through, among other things, fees, rents, other user charges, and state funding and taxes. Many transit facilities are located in the downtown or village areas of towns and cities. If the bill passes, these areas could change dramatically with no consideration for the views of local residents or even property owners in TCDA development districts. Those changes could certainly do a lot of good, like providing badly needed affordable housing or new transit parking facilities, but they could also do a lot of harm. I give some examples of what they could do. Demolishing beloved and shops that people have frequented for years and replacing with housing or offices, deciding that a municipal parking lot that brings fees to the town or city would now be bringing those fees to the state, could build things that are not in accordance with the town zoning regulations, etc. Also, we have to note that properties within these half a mile of transit facilities are often of great value, and residential or commercial property owners could suffer great losses. They also would know, if this bill passes, that if they're located in those areas, they could be subject to eminent domain at any time for the rest of their lives. The political composition of the board also raises questions about contractor and developer selection and agreements, regardless note, of the party, of the political party or parties that happen to have appointment authority at the time. There are many ways this bill could have been drafted had the intention been to offer TOD assistance and incentives to municipalities and to give their citizens a critical role in the decision-making process. But it was not. Instead, it delegates to a state-level group of political appointees absolute authority for decision-making in a significant area of most of Connecticut's 169 towns, and it strips their citizens of any ability to do anything about it. I urge the members of the committee not to pass this bill, or at least to change it dramatically, in order to preserve the fundamental ability of towns and cities to make critical development decisions for themselves.
Anyway, thank you, Representative Lavielle, for being here today. I share an awful lot of the concerns that you have, particularly the eminent domain piece. It's anytime you have state government superseding the local authority, it just makes the little hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I have a question. You may not be able to answer this, but the reason I'm asking you is you've done, obviously, a lot of research into this bill, and it has to do with the funding. I'm not sure if you know whether or not this is being funded out of the transportation fund or anything like that. It is out of the transportation.
No, I can answer the question.
You can answer the question, and the reason I'm bringing it up is this is coming up. This whole idea covers a lot of the areas that are covered by the Community Investment Act, and at a time when the governor would like to sweep the funds from the Community Investment Act. I just hope this isn't being diverted particularly to this project. I think there's a lot of duplication, and I think that it would be a double whammy to have the towns subject to the state authority on this and being deprived of the funds that they usually have for various downtown projects, housing projects, and things like that. Thank you.
You make an excellent point, Representative Zawistowski, and actually the budget, again, it is supposed to raise its own funds through revenues, but in the meantime, the startup funds are housed in the DOT budget. There are none for fiscal 16, and there is $100,000 for fiscal 17. And that is as far as it goes for the moment, but that is where the budget is actually housed.